A funny story. Barbara sat comfortably beside the living room window on a bright Saturday afternoon. Warm sunlight filled the room, making everything feel peaceful, bright, and cheerful. Outside, children laughed as they played in the neighborhood park. Their happy voices floated gently through the open window. Every now and then, birds sang sweetly in the nearby trees. Barbara closed her eyes for a moment and smiled. She loved afternoons like this. Quiet, relaxing, and filled with happiness.
Barbara had always enjoyed making other people smile. Whenever she saw someone laughing, she couldn't help smiling too. She truly believed that a single smile could brighten someone's entire day. Sharing happiness was one of her favorite things. Whether she was with family, friends, or even someone she had just met, Barbara always hoped to leave them smiling. That simple joy meant a great deal to her.
Barbara likes funny stories. Funny stories had always been among Barbara's favorite things. She loved stories that made people smile, stories that made them laugh, and sometimes stories so funny that tears came to their eyes from laughing. Whenever she visited the library, she almost always searched for books filled with humorous adventures and amusing characters. One day, a friend smiled and asked, "Barbara, why do you always choose funny books?" Barbara smiled warmly. "Because laughing makes people feel good." Her friend nodded. "I think you're right." Barbara believed that a good laugh could make an ordinary day feel much brighter. She likes to hear funny stories. Barbara loved listening to funny stories, just as much as she loved reading them. Whenever her family gathered together, she quietly hoped that someone would tell another funny story. Her grandfather was especially good at it. He often shared amusing memories from when he was a young man. Sometimes the stories were about funny mistakes. Other times, they were about unexpected surprises that made everyone laugh. Barbara listened carefully to every word. One evening, after another wonderful family story, she smiled and said, "I wish I could tell stories as Grandpa." Her grandfather smiled kindly. "You can. You just need to practice." Barbara never forgot those encouraging words. She likes to tell funny stories. After hearing so many wonderful stories, Barbara decided to build a collection of her own favorites. Whenever she heard a funny joke or an amusing story, she tried her best to remember it. She even practiced standing in front of a mirror. She watched her facial expressions. She practiced changing her voice for different characters. Soon, she discovered something important. Telling a funny story wasn't only about the words. It was also about speaking at the right speed, pausing at exactly the right moment, and smiling at just the right time. One afternoon, her father noticed her practicing. "What are you doing?" he asked. "I'm practicing telling funny stories," Barbara replied. Her father smiled proudly. "Keep practicing. The more you practice, the better you'll become." Barbara smiled happily. She couldn't wait to make someone laugh. One afternoon, Barbara remembered one of her favorite funny stories. A big smile appeared on her face. "I think Mom will enjoy this one," she thought. She walked happily toward the kitchen. Inside, her mother was preparing dinner. The delicious smell of fresh bread and cooked vegetables filled the room. Although her mother looked busy, she smiled as soon as Barbara walked in. "What would you like, Barbara?" she asked kindly. Barbara smiled with excitement. "I have a funny story to tell you." Her mother looked at her warmly. I'd love to hear it. Barbara took a deep breath and got ready to begin. She told her mom a funny story. Barbara began telling the story with great excitement. She used different voices for each character. Whenever something silly happened, she made funny faces. She paused at exactly the right moments because she wanted the ending to be as funny as possible. Her mother listened politely while continuing to prepare dinner. She paid attention to every single word. Barbara felt confident. She was certain that her mother would laugh the moment the story ended. Finally, she reached the last sentence. The story was finished. When she finished, she waited for her mom to laugh. Barbara stood quietly with a hopeful smile. She looked at her mother's face. Then she waited. 1 second passed, then another. The kitchen remained peaceful. Only the gentle sound of vegetables cooking could be heard. Barbara blinked. Her mother smiled kindly, but she didn't laugh. Barbara felt surprised. She had been expecting a loud laugh. She waited a little longer. Still, there was only silence. Barbara looked confused. Then she gently asked, "Mom, why aren't you laughing?"
"Mom, why aren't you laughing? That was a funny story," Barbara said. Her voice wasn't angry. She wasn't upset. She was simply curious. She honestly wanted to understand. Barbara's mother stopped cooking. She placed the spoon on the counter and turned toward Barbara. A gentle smile appeared on her face. "Oh, I'm sorry," her mother said kindly. "I really enjoyed listening to you. You told the story very clearly, and you did a wonderful job telling it." Barbara listened carefully. Then, her mother shared an important lesson. Sometimes you think something is funny, but someone else thinks it isn't funny. Barbara thought quietly about those words. She had never considered that idea before. Her mother continued gently. "People don't always laugh at the same things." "Really?" Barbara asked. Her mother nodded. "Everyone has a different sense of humor. Some people enjoy one kind of joke. Other people enjoy a different kind." Barbara thought for a moment. "So it doesn't mean I told the story badly?" Her mother smiled warmly. "Not at all. It simply means different people enjoy different kinds of stories." Barbara slowly smiled. She realized she had just learned a very important lesson. So Barbara's mom did not laugh at Barbara's story. Although Barbara's mother didn't laugh, she truly appreciated the effort Barbara had made. She stepped closer and gave Barbara a warm hug. "I like hearing you tell stories," she said softly. "Please keep telling them. The more stories you tell, the more you'll discover what different people enjoy." Barbara smiled. "Thank you, Mom." She no longer felt disappointed. Instead, she felt curious. Maybe someone else would think the story was funny. A few minutes later, Barbara heard footsteps coming from the hallway. Her younger sister had just arrived home. Barbara smiled to herself. A new idea suddenly came into her mind. Why don't I tell her the same story? She walked happily toward her sister. "I want to tell you something funny," Barbara said. Her younger sister smiled excitedly. "Okay, I'm ready." Barbara took a deep breath. Once again, she prepared to tell her favorite funny story. Barbara told the same story to her younger sister. She used the very same voices, the very same funny expressions, the very same pauses. Everything was exactly the same as before. Her younger sister listened carefully from beginning to end.
As the story continued, a small smile slowly appeared on her face. Barbara noticed it. Her heart filled with hope. Then she reached the funny ending. She stopped speaking and quietly waited.
For one brief moment, everything was completely quiet. Then, suddenly, her younger sister burst into laughter. Her younger sister laughed at the story. She laughed loudly. She laughed happily. "That was so funny," she said, while still laughing. Barbara's eyes lit up with happiness. "You really liked it?" she asked. "I loved it," her sister replied. "Will you tell it again later?" Barbara laughed too. "Of course I will." The room quickly filled with smiles, laughter, and happiness.